Some of the foods most recommended for gut healing can make certain people feel worse before they feel better. In fact, it's something I see surprisingly often in people who are genuinely trying to improve their health. They add vegetables, beans, fermented foods, prebiotics, and other gut-supportive foods, only to find themselves feeling more bloated, uncomfortable, foggy, or reactive than before. In this episode, we're talking about why that happens, what it may tell us about the current state of the gut, and how to support your microbiome in a way that builds tolerance instead of overwhelming it. Welcome back to Renegade Remission, where I share stories and strategies that help you heal, feel better, and live longer, regardless of your prognosis. Fiber is one of the most consistently recommended nutrients in health and nutrition, and for good reason. It supports bowel regularity, feeds beneficial gut bacteria, helps produce short-chain fatty acids, supports blood sugar stability, improves cholesterol metabolism, and plays an important role in the health of the gut lining and immune system. Because of those benefits, many people eventually decide that improving gut health means increasing fiber. But this is where many people encounter a frustrating situation. Instead of feeling better, they feel worse. Their bloating increases, their belly feels distended, gas becomes uncomfortable or even painful. They may experience pressure, nausea, constipation, loose stools, brain fog, fatigue, or a general sense that their body is not tolerating the very foods that are supposed to help. This can be incredibly discouraging, but the problem is usually not that fiber is bad. The problem is that fiber has to be processed by an ecosystem, and that ecosystem may not be ready for the sudden increase you've given it. Your gut is not simply a tube that food passes through. It's a living microbial environment. When you change the food supply, the microbes respond. Sometimes that response is smooth and beneficial. Other times, particularly when the microbiome is imbalanced, motility is impaired, inflammation is present, or the gut lining is irritated, the transition can feel uncomfortable before it becomes supportive. That is the fiber paradox. The same foods that may help rebuild gut health over time can be difficult to tolerate at first when the ecosystem receiving them is already under stress. So today we're going to explore why that happens, what it means, and how to work with fiber in a way that respects your body's current capacity. Here is why fiber helps and also why it can cause reactions at first. Fiber feeds the microbiome. Fiber is often described as roughage, but that's only part of the story. Some fibers add bulk to stool and help move waste through the intestines. Other fibers are fermentable, meaning they are broken down by bacteria living in the colon. When gut bacteria ferment fiber, they produce compounds called short-chain fatty acids, including acetate, propionate, and butyrate. These compounds are one of the primary reasons fiber is so valuable. Butyrate, in particular, serves as an important fuel source for colon cells and helps support the gut barrier, immune regulation, and anti-inflammatory signaling. This is one reason high-fiber diets are often associated with better metabolic health, healthier bowel function, and a more resilient gut ecosystem. Fiber is not just feeding you, it's feeding the organisms that help maintain the environment of your gut. But it also explains why fiber can create symptoms. Fermentation produces beneficial compounds, yes, but it also produces gas. In a balanced gut with healthy motility, that gas is manageable. But in a sensitive or dysbiotic gut, fermentation becomes uncomfortable. The issue is not always the fiber itself, rather it might be where fermentation is occurring, which microbes are doing the fermenting, how quickly gas is being produced, and whether the gut can move that gas through efficiently. The next thing we need to understand is that dysbiosis changes the response to fiber. Dysbiosis refers to an imbalance within the microbial community of the gut. This can involve low diversity, low levels of beneficial bacteria, overgrowth of certain organisms, reduced production of protective metabolites, or imbalance between species that produce and consume gas. When dysbiosis is present, adding fermentable fiber can sometimes feed the wrong populations too quickly. The result may be increased gas, bloating, discomfort, or changes in stool. This doesn't mean that fiber itself is harmful. It means that the microbial community may be reacting. And it explains why two people can eat the same high-fiber meal and have dramatically different experiences. Because one person's microbiome is efficiently converting that fiber into beneficial short-chain fatty acids with very little discomfort. But another person's microbiome is producing excessive gas, irritation, or symptoms. In a healthy digestive system, most fermentation occurs in the colon. But in cases of small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or SIBO, bacteria are present in excessive amounts in the small intestine where fermentation is not intended to be as intense. When fermentable carbohydrates reach those bacteria, they produce gas in the small intestine. This contributes to bloating, distension, abdominal pain, pressure, diarrhea, constipation, reflux, nausea, fatigue, and brain fog in some individuals. This is one reason certain high-fiber foods can feel particularly difficult for people who have this SIBO-like pattern. Foods such as onions, garlic, beans, wheat, apples, sweeteners, and some prebiotic fibers are highly fermentable. They can be nutritious foods, but in the wrong gut context, they generate symptoms. So the goal is to find the forms and doses of fiber your body can tolerate while addressing the underlying reasons tolerance is low in the first place. The next thing we need to understand is that your gut motility determines whether fiber helps or hurts. Motility is the movement of food, gas, and waste through the digestive tract, and it's one of the most overlooked factors influencing fiber tolerance. If motility is strong and coordinated, fiber can help bulk stool, feed beneficial microbes, and support regular elimination. But if motility is slow, adding large amounts of fiber can sometimes make bloating, constipation, pressure, and discomfort worse. Fermentation increases, gas production increases, and bulk increases, but the system is not moving efficiently enough to clear that material. Motility is influenced by many factors, including hydration, minerals, thyroid function, vagus nerve tone, stress, medications, movement, meal timing, inflammation, and the migrating motor complex that helps sweep the small intestines between meals. This means that fiber tolerance can be a nervous system issue, a movement issue, a hydration issue, and a rhythm issue. The next thing we need to understand is that raw and cooked fiber are very different. The form of fiber often matters just as much as the amount. A gut that is already inflamed, irritated, or struggling with digestion may respond very differently to a raw kale salad than it does to a bowl of well-cooked vegetables. Cooking changes the structure of plant fibers and often makes them easier to tolerate. A raw salad may create bloating, while cooked zucchini, carrots, squash, or spinach may be soothing. Whole beans may feel overwhelming, while a small serving of well-cooked lentils or blended bean soup may be easier to handle. This is one reason gut healing often begins with softer, cooked, and simpler plant foods rather than immediately jumping into large salads, raw vegetables, or heavy amounts of legumes. The issue is not that raw foods are inherently bad, it's that a stressed digestive system may need food that has already been partially broken down before it arrives. You can move into raw foods as soon as your body can tolerate them. Another thing we need to understand is that the microbiome needs time to adapt. This is one reason why some people conclude that fiber doesn't work for them when, in reality, they've simply increased it faster than their microbiome could adapt to. When you change fiber intake, the microbiome changes too. But that adaptation takes time. Bacterial populations shift based on what you feed them. Enzyme capacity changes, fermentation patterns change, short-chain fatty acid production can increase, but those changes don't happen overnight. If someone goes from a very low fiber diet to a very high fiber diet in a matter of days, the gut may not yet have the microbial capacity to process that change smoothly. Gas and bloating increase because the ecosystem is trying to catch up. This is one reason why gradual increases in fiber often work better. A slower approach gives beneficial fiber-fermenting bacteria time to expand and grow and allows the gut to adapt to increasing levels of fermentation. If you've listened to our previous episodes on capacity, protein, and muscle preservation, you'll probably recognize a familiar theme here. The body responds best when support is introduced at a pace it can adapt to. More is not always better, especially when the system is already overwhelmed. One reason fiber advice becomes so frustrating is that we often talk about fiber as though it is just a single nutrient, where in reality fiber is a large category of compounds that behave very differently inside the gut. Soluble fiber, insoluble fiber, resistant starch, inulin, pectin, beta-glucans, gums, mucilages, cellulose, and FODMAP fibers can all produce very different effects. Soluble fibers dissolve in water and form a gel-like substance. These fibers are frequently gentler and can help support both constipation and diarrhea. Examples of these fibers include chia, flax, psyllium, applesauce, and certain cooked vegetables. Insoluble fibers add bulk and help move stool through the digestive tract. These are found in foods such as wheat bran, vegetable skins, and some whole grains. For some sensitive individuals, especially in large amounts, these fibers can feel rougher or more irritating. And prebiotic fibers such as inulin and fructooligosaccharides can strongly stimulate bacterial growth. This can be incredibly beneficial, but it can also produce significant gas and bloating in susceptible individuals. If in your experience, fiber or gut healing foods have made you feel worse, it doesn't necessarily mean your body doesn't need fiber. It means your gut needs a slower and more strategic approach. This distinction matters because many people respond to symptoms by becoming increasingly restrictive. They remove beans, grains, vegetables, fruit, fermented foods, and eventually anything that produces the slightest symptom. And restriction can be appropriate for a period of time, especially when symptoms are severe. But if restriction becomes the only strategy, then the diet becomes really narrow, microbial diversity declines, nutritional variety shrinks, and fear around food begins to grow. The first step is to stop thinking of fiber as a single category. Instead of asking, can I tolerate fiber? Ask, which fibers can I tolerate right now? The second is to increase slowly. If you've been eating very little fiber, resist the urge to go from 0 to 100 overnight. A huge salad, a bowl of beans, a green smoothie, and a scoop of inulin powder may all be healthy choices individually, but together they overwhelm a gut that is not prepared for that level of fermentation. Choose one fiber-rich food and increase it gradually. Even a few tablespoons of cooked vegetables can be enough to begin the process. The third step is to cook, soften, soak, blend, and simplify whenever necessary. Cooking vegetables until soft can improve tolerance. Soaking and pressure cooking legumes can reduce fermentable compounds. Blended soups may be easier than raw vegetables, and peeling tougher skins off may provide temporary relief while tolerance is being rebuilt. The fourth thing you can do is support motility before adding more bulk. If constipation, bloating, pressure, or incomplete bowel movements are issues for you, adding more fiber without improving movement through the digestive tract may backfire. It's important to get adequate hydration, movement, calories, magnesium, regular meal timing, stress reduction, and nervous system support. If your constipation is severe or persistent, you should seek support from a nutritionist rather than continuing to increase fiber indefinitely. The fifth step is to be cautious with concentrated prebiotic supplements. Inulin, FOS, resistant starch powders, and other prebiotic products can be really powerful tools. For some people, they're incredibly helpful, but for others, they create intense bloating and discomfort. If you choose to use them, introduce only one at a time and begin below the suggested serving size. And in many cases, whole foods provide a gentler starting point. The sixth thing you can do is use symptoms as feedback. Mild gas or fullness may simply indicate that your microbiome is adapting. Severe bloating, significant pain, major changes in bowel habits, rashes, flushing, insomnia, or brain fog suggest that the dose, timing, or type of fiber needs adjustment. The goal is to challenge the gut enough to encourage adaptation without overwhelming it. And finally, protect variety over the long term. If you need a temporary simplified diet, that can be completely appropriate. But whenever possible, the long-term goal should be expansion rather than restriction. A diverse microbiome is supported by diverse plant foods, and most people benefit when they can tolerate more foods, not fewer. Before we wrap up, I want to invite you to stay connected beyond the podcast. If you're navigating chronic or serious illness and looking for trustworthy information, practical resources, and a community of people exploring what makes healing possible, I'd love to have you join my email community. That's where I share additional research, healing stories, insights, and updates that don't make it into the show. You can join for free at therenegadenutritionist.com. Most importantly, it's a reminder that you don't have to navigate this journey alone. Thanks for listening today, and until next time, go be renegades.